Red light, green light, red light, green light, red light, green light, red light, green light, red light.
Haha, look who it is. It's our new year, 2025, and we're already older and the knees are hurting. That's how the passage of time happens. But of course, welcome to a new year, same old episode of the Soul Sessions. I, of course, am your host, Soul. But with me today, a season 3 return. He is obviously your Riot Cabaret World Champion, one half of the Burning Heart Tag Team Champions. My friend, Mark Andrews, welcome back.
Thank you very much for having me, my friend. It's a pleasure to be doing it's the first one of the year. This is the first one you're doing, right?
Of course, I had to get you. Of course, absolutely.
I appreciate it. Yeah, got to get the Riot Cabaret Champion. And it's funny you say about knees hurting because I can relate to that very much. Yeah, I've started the year with very hurt knees. I believe that's just my future. Every year they'll start hurting more and more after the last 20 years of wrestling.
Hey, wrestling, my friend. It's a sport we love, but it can be a bit of a damaging mistress. It does like to bring on pain. But
I
of course, Mark,
that a few years ago, yeah.
Absolutely. But of course, Mark, you appeared on episode 100 for the Soul Sessions, which was a monumental episode, and I'm grateful for having you on. But you had quite a year. Obviously, 2024 happened, and it's gone by. For yourself, reflecting back on 2024, how do you look back at the year as a part of your career?
Do you know what? It's funny. I spent a good while, about a week or so ago, editing my end of year music video, which is something that I love to do out of tradition. And I am very proud of my 2024. Actually, I'm really happy with how it all went down. Don't get me wrong, a lot of ups and downs. I actually ended up spending about 5 months on the sidelines altogether because I started the year with an injury. So I had the entire of January off last year. I think I came back where it was either February or March. I think it was mid-February. And then I ended up having another 10 weeks off, bam in the middle, because of a serious hamstring injury, which, if I'm honest, looking back at it, was kind of, it was avoidable. But, accidents happen in wrestling, which is unfortunate. But I feel like I've had a lot of bad luck over the last year in terms of injuries. That being said, I'm still really proud of what I did get to achieve in the, let's say, 7 or 8 months that I was an in-ring performer. And even that time when I was out, with injury, from a promoter side of things and from a coach side of things, I'm really pleased with how the year's turned out, from running Attack Pro Wrestling, from setting up New Way Wrestling Cardiff, the training facility down here. So all in all, considering I've been injured for, 4 or 5 months of 2024, it's been a really, really good, really productive year. So I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And, had the injuries, of course, but you still had a stellar year and amazing performance throughout, not only just the UK, but obviously going over for Germany as well and doing stuff there. You've been very active. I would love to obviously delve into the insight of, when I've spoken to previous guests and when they have injuries and when they come back, there's things that they change in their style or how they approach the ring. For yourself, Mark, making your returns after these injuries, have you changed how you approach things in the rings, like movesets, or just how you approach things differently?
Yeah, I think, if I go back and look at the footage of me wrestling, let's say 10, 15 years ago, I mean, it's obvious I'm a lot faster back then, first of all, but also I'm taking a lot more risks because back then, my body was younger. I had more to give in ring. So I wouldn't say I've changed up my style too much in terms of, I'm still a high flying wrestler. I still do a lot of kind of what I would consider, not risky, but it's relatively high risk stuff. But I think I just choose when to do it a bit more. So you're not going to see a shooting star press every single match because these days that's the type of stuff that's going to wear me down at age 32. And then I think in terms of my career going forward, I think I am going into a slightly more character-driven and slower style. For my work at Riot Cabaret, for example, it's really given me an opportunity to kind of explore a side that I haven't been able to explore previously. I've been a babyface for my entire career up until this last year at Riot Cabaret, and I'm really able to sink my teeth into something a little bit different. 20 years in, this is still kind of maybe not the very first time. I did a little bit in Progress before as Eddie Dennis's tag partner, but my first time as a kind of main character as a heel, and I'm loving it. So I am excited to, transition into maybe a different style of wrestling going forward, but I don't think I'll ever completely change. There's only so much you can do when you're 5'7" and you're not incredibly well built, which I don't consider myself as that. So I don't think I'll ever change my style completely because it's a style that I'm particularly passionate about as well. Cruiserweight wrestling, junior heavyweight wrestling, but it's definitely different now than what it was, let's say, 10 years ago.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate, as well. And let's talk about Riot Cabaret, because I was there all in weekend, getting first, coming back for Riot Cabaret when I went to them the last year, getting to see obviously yourself wrestle in person for the first time as well was quite an experience in the main event. All was a stunning show. But obviously, the story there obviously was, disrespect towards you, which, I was like, oh, how could they? How could Michael Oku throw disrespect to you, man? And obviously, congratulations, you are obviously the Riot Cabaret World Champion. But just that whole main event of that show was a stellar show going out to it. Just your thoughts looking back at that crowning moment of becoming, a world champion for such a blossoming company in Riot Cabaret.
Yeah, it's something that I do feel really proud of, and I feel really proud to be the Riot Cabaret champion because genuinely, I know Sean and James who run the shows, and me and Sean, we go back for quite a few years now because we've been co-presenting the podcast together. The Mark Andrews Love Letters Wrestling podcast. So we share, I think, similarities in terms of our thoughts on what wrestling shows can be. It's not necessarily what they should be, but it's what they can be and the potential of what pro wrestling can do, especially in this country. And I think Riot Cabaret, as you said, is a blossoming company because it really is proving what potential a UK wrestling show has. It's completely different to anything else in the UK. Something that I also consider Attack Pro Wrestling to be, which I run down in Wales. Difference is obviously they're in London, and they're almost taking it even further out the box, and they're really changing things up. So I'm incredibly proud to be at the forefront of a company which is doing such awesome things, whether it's bringing in Mr. Blobby or having wrestling matches on boats or just showcasing young up-and-coming talent in the best way possible. Because I know a lot of companies around the UK think that they're showcasing young, up-and-coming talents, but I think some do it better than others. And I think Riot Cabaret is one of those companies that does that very well. It's also given me an opportunity in the kind of, veteran role that I am in the company to go up against a lot of younger guys. So the fact that I've been able to be in the ring with Michael Oku 3 times in the last year, and some of those matches are some of my favorite of my entire career, nowhere else in the last, I think he's been wrestling, is it 6 or 7 years maybe, and nowhere else has booked that match, including me, and because I'm a promoter as well. So good on them for doing that, because it was a first time ever match, and it's one that I very much enjoyed. So yeah, I think it's a really, really special place, and I do feel proud to kind of be flying the flag there and to be at the forefront of that company at the moment.
Absolutely. It's really probably one of my favorite companies in the UK. We've obviously got a top 10 list coming out with my partnership with Wrestling Republic, and Riot Cabaret is going to be on that top 10 list because I just absolutely love the company with what they're providing. It really, to me, I feel like, Mark, I don't know if you agree with this, is like Riot Cabaret cements all of British wrestling. The comedy aspects with stuff like Mr. Blobley and the Amita, last man standing match that went on for like an hour and a bit. You have the technical style as well. You have someone like obviously yourself and Oku having a match that's absolutely stellar. And then you have tag teams as well with Sunshine Machine and obviously Danny and Flash doing stuff with Subculture. You have that whole collective essence. Do you think with what Riot Cabaret is doing, it's maybe one of the best showcases of British wrestling to an international audience with how much themes they cover?
Yes, I'd argue it is. Yeah, but it's funny, right? It definitely could fit that bill. It could definitely fit that bill as showcasing some of the best wrestling in the UK. But I'd argue that it's actually doing something more important, which is bringing in new fans. Because don't get me wrong, a lot of people abroad, they'll look at companies, like back in the day, they'll look at Progress Wrestling. And it's the best wrestling in the world at that time. And it happens to be, primarily British wrestlers there, obviously. These days, I'd say it's Rev Pro. When people from abroad want to look at like the best wrestling in the UK, they go to Rev Pro. However, these are fans who are going to watch whatever is seen as the best, quote unquote, the best wrestling in the world. Whereas what Riot Cabaret are doing, which is so important, is they're bringing in new fans. That's also what Progress did back in the day. They're actually opening up the audience a little bit more. As people who might have watched it back in the day and then fallen out of love with it for a little while, and they're bringing them back. And I think that's, again, arguably more important than just showcasing the best, which they are also doing. They are also showcasing the best, but they're doing it in a very clever way where they really get to bring in new fans, which, is what we need more importantly, really.
No, absolutely. We need fresh faces and eyes to not only give their thoughts and critique on the product, but obviously to be there when people maybe fall out or, they move on, because they have that new fresh blood of fans will always continue the drive and passion for wrestling. And that's essentially what, wrestling needs, is always that passion and drive from a rabid fan base. obviously we kind of really saw that with British Wrestling with All In Weekend. Obviously, I know Attack ran a show as well at the weekend with Hustle and North as well, if I'm correct.
Yep. Lots of fun. That was we met there for the first time, I believe, right? Did you come there, or was it
Riot
Riot the
Cabaret,
week
yeah.
before? It was Riot. Okay, yeah. That whole weekend was a bit blurry for me because there was a lot going on.
Yeah, I've looked at my bank balance from that weekend, and it's no pretty sight. I've blocked out my memory.
I can imagine. Yeah.
English pints, man, they're a killer. But obviously, you also attended All In as well. I'm correct. You and Flash together.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that was a really interesting week for us, actually, because I mean, that was the tail end of my hamstring injury. And if truth be told, I probably could have done with a week or two longer on the recovery, to be honest, on the mend. But luckily I'd kind of sped up my rehab. I'd really pushed it in the 8 or 10 weeks that I'd had off. And my goal was, because I knew that Riot Cabaret show was coming up, and I knew that All In was happening on the Sunday, but more importantly, I knew that their Cardiff tapings were happening on the Wednesday before. So 2 days before that Riot Cabaret show, they had AEW in Cardiff for the first time. I'd argue, maybe the third or second, arguably most important wrestling show to happen in Wales. You've had Clash at the Castle a few years ago, which, I've talked about in loads of interviews before, probably with you, with our last interview. It kind of felt somewhat of a slap in the face to not have any Welsh talent on that show. And then before that, you had NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff. Don't get me wrong, no complaints there. There was some good Welsh representation on that show. And, the moment of my career with Flash when we won the NXT UK Tag Team Championships. But with this AEW show, it really felt like an opportunity where, okay, they're in Wales, they're in the UK. There's so many talented wrestlers in Wales right now. And me and Flash showed up hoping to get a spot on that show. And we were kind of under the impression that maybe we would. And it looked like for a second we were going to be on the show. It looked like there was going to be some sort of tag team match on there. And I guess, the nature of televised wrestling is that things get cut, plans get changed, maybe matches go over. And I'm not entirely sure why. But we didn't end up making our AEW debut that night, which was slightly heartbreaking, if I'm honest. But it wasn't so much that it wasn't that me and Flash got to go and work and debut for AEW, but it was more the fact that no Welsh talent in general got to be on that show. That was, what always feels like the kicker to me, is that, don't get me wrong, selfishly, I'd love to be the one to do it. I'd love to be the one on Clash at the Castle, or I'd love to be the one on AEW when it's in Cardiff. But more importantly, I'd love to see some new talent. I'd love to see Danny Jones on there, or, young Leon Cage, who's only 17 years old, or Elijah, or James Ellis, or, Jay Joshua, Nico Angelo, any of the many talents we have, Brendan White, Wild Boar, whoever it is. There's so much talent in Wales. And sometimes I just feel a little bit hard done by when Welsh talent is overlooked, because I think maybe to a lot of the big American companies, we're all the same. You know what I mean? England and Wales and Scotland and Ireland, we're all kind of the same. Whereas, when you live here, that's very much not the case. And it would be really nice if Welsh talent got kind of more opportunities on a bigger platform, because that would just really kind of escalate our scene. You know what I mean? It would really help us along, because so much talent here, and we need those bigger platforms to show the world.
Oh, Mark, absolutely, mate. I've delved my good arm into the Welsh scene. I've interviewed many white talents, obviously, from yourself to James Ellis, Jay Joshua, Leon Cage, Shane Hooker. So many vast amount of talent right there, and they are amazing. I mean, I would have fucking lost my shit if you and Flash debuted on that Cardiff card.
Yeah, we were there. We had our gear ready. We were ready to make the debut, but yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't always work out that way. And then we ended up, then later in the weekend going to All In, which was nice. We're there backstage, mainly just to see some old friends as well. So that roster is jam packed of people who we've met throughout the indies over the years. Throughout our time in WWE as well. So it was really nice just to, especially like post-COVID. We haven't had the opportunity to see a lot of those guys. We haven't worked in America post-COVID at all, because our visas ran out pretty early on after we got released and after COVID. So it was really nice actually just to be able to bump into so many old friends, guys like Evil Uno, I'm trying to think, FTR, the Bucks, again, most of their roster, Tommy N, Buddy Murphy, all those guys that we've worked with so many times in the past. We finally got to see them and catch up with them. So it was still a really nice week regardless.
Oh, absolutely, mate, as well. And I know, obviously, two lads you have quite a lot of history with. The grizzled young vets made their AEW officially signed appearance on that card as well, confronting the Young Bucks and FDR in the freeway tag team match. I mean, obviously they're doing stuff. They became the New Japan Strong Tag Team Champions. You know, they're doing stuff in Ring of Honor and AEW. But I mean, come on, can we get used to against them again on maybe a grand stage like AEW?
I would love that. Honestly, those guys. I mean, we got to, we wrestled them earlier, well, last year. They beat us for the Rev Pro Tag Team Championships in York Hall. And before that, it'd been a good few years since we'd been in the ring together. So it was really nice that we got to have that match. But I'd love to be able to do it on a grander stage again, because the matches that we had with them in WWE are some of my favorite of all time. They're just, they're such an excellent team. And I will, hand on heart, I'll say, and I know Flash would say the same, we've learned a lot from them as a team, because when me and Flash first started teaming, that was actually in WWE. We'd done it a handful of times on the indies beforehand, but, never really enough to have some real chemistry. And it was only working with them and kind of taking inspiration from them where we learned to gel more as a team. So, they get a lot of, I'll give them a lot of credit right now for anything that they taught us over the years in terms of tag team wrestling. I genuinely think they are one of the best tag teams in the world. And I was delighted when they got that moment at Wembley. That's every British wrestler's dream, to have a moment at Wembley Stadium. But on top of that, it's great to see him with the New Japan Strong tag team straps. I really hope they keep getting pushed out there in America and AEW, because they deserve it. I don't think the world, even with this success, I still don't think the world knows quite how good they are. And it was a shame that they didn't get the run that I believe they deserved in WWE. I think they should have been NXT tag champions, main roster, SmackDown and Raw tag team champions. I think they should have been up there in that spot that, how we look at like FTR, for example. And that's a match that I really want to see on a really, really big platform as well, on a big pay-per-view. So I hope that they just keep getting those opportunities, because I know that they'll just smash them every time. But yeah, all the love in the world for GYV.
Hey, I love the young vets. They really are an exceptional team. I mean, personally, the fan in me really wants them and FTR in a double dog collar match, harking back to FTR and the Briscoes. I think that would fucking slap. That'd be amazing. That would be stunning. Obviously, though, a big thing for British wrestling on All In was the return of Nigel McGuinness to in-ring competition. From wrestlers I've spoken to in Britain, they talk about that as one of their most emotional moments, to see Nigel come back in the ring for what he did for obviously early day Ring of Honor, what he means to British wrestling fans, obviously being the voice of NXT UK back in the day. For yourself, Mark, obviously seeing Nigel make his in-ring return in Wembley Stadium, as a British wrestler and obviously a British wrestling fan, what does it mean for our history to see him back in the ring?
I mean, a minute ago I mentioned about, it's every British wrestler's dream to have a moment at Wembley Stadium. And we got to see so many. You just reminded me right there. Like that match alone, what's it called? The Gauntlet, the Casino Gauntlet gimmick. So I always forget the names of these matches. But that match alone, like that, genuinely, that might even be match of the year for me right there, just because of the moments in it. First of all, before we even get to Nigel, we get to see Zack. My trainer, I say my trainer, someone who I trained very much with back in the day, at least, and someone who I've known for years, since I was 14 years old. Seeing him get to enter and have a match like that, in Wembley Stadium, incredible. And obviously his success since, I genuinely feel emotional when I see all that stuff happening. Then on top of that, to see Nigel come out and have the same, the same moment, the same pop, arguably so much more important, not to take it away from Zack, but because he's been absent from in-ring wrestling over the last few years. Yeah, I mean, so special. Goosebumps. I was there with Flash, with a load of other wrestlers. We might have been there with Trent as well. And I know how much it meant to him too. But all of us just watching this, like, this is the best. Like, I can't believe it. And again, like, no one knew it was happening. You were backstage, but no one necessarily knew. Or only the higher ups, I guess, would have known it was happening. It was just such a pop. I was, made up for him. I know how much that would have meant to Nigel. And again, like, he's inspired a generation, and not only is he inspired a generation from his in-ring work back in the day at Ring of Honor, at TNA, on the indies, but he was inspiring us even when he was commentating at WWE. He was someone that we could go to before our matches and pick his brain and ask him on stuff. Not just, one, from his amazing wrestling mind, but two, from his commentary mind, from how something looks on TV. So I really do think he's one of the great minds of pro wrestling. And it's just amazing to be able to see him come back to it and do what he loves and get his flowers properly, especially in a moment like that. And then followed after that was Ricochet's moment too. And I'm just thinking, man, like, all my friends are getting these cool ass moments. It was great. I loved that match to bits. And that entire show, really, Like, we were sat there watching it, and I was thinking to myself, this is awesome. This is what a Wembley Stadium show should be like. You know, I thought they knocked it out of the park that night. I'd argue that it was better than the year before. You know, I think it was actually a much stronger show than the year before. And yeah, just an all-round banger. That show was fantastic.
Yeah, 100% agree there, Mark. I prefer this year's to last year's All In. Not saying last year's All In was necessarily on a negative, but this year's just was a lot of good. You know, as a Scotsman, seeing Drew lose 2 times and just seeing Brian win, I'll take that as my victory lap for that as well. But obviously, you mentioned Zack Saber Jr. If viewers are probably wondering why does it look like I have bags under my eyes, I was up from 7 a.m. watching Wrestle Kingdom.
Nice.
It was good. I mean, him and Shota Umino going like 43 minutes in the main event of the Tokyo Dome, and then he's going to do it again tomorrow morning against Ricochet. I mean, the man's an absolute unit of how
amazing.
I mean, even that, the Hechicero match of Rev Pro's Anniversary 12 was absolutely stunning as well. Like, the man's a technical machine, but a lot of fans have always been speculating. AEW New Japan are coming for Forbidden Door in London later in the year. Do you think, Mark, the most British match could be Nigel McGuinness versus Zack Sabre Jr. for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship?
I mean, I really hope that happens. I'd love to see that happen right there because, yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, Zack, to me, he's someone who, you know, he's not on social media. He doesn't do the over-the-top self-promotion or the kind of, you know, the online showboating, if you will, and he just doesn't conform to all that stuff. And yet he is still just the best. He's the best in this industry. And I might just be licking his ass here because he's my, you know, former trainer and stuff like that. But like, I genuinely think he smashed it above anyone else. He has got such a unique style of wrestling. He went against the grain. He didn't feel like he needed to go through the tick box list of things that a wrestler needs to be. He did it his own way, his unique way, so special. And he's made it to the very, very top doing that. And I just think, you know, I was texting him after he won the big one. And again, as I said, I felt genuinely emotional. This is someone I met when I was 14 and he was 17 years old. And he was just this, essentially, you know, a teenager who admired Japanese wrestling and really wanted to get good at that style. And here he is winning the IWGP Championship, you know, the top of New Japan. And I think, yeah, incredible. I'd love to see him against Nigel, especially in London as well. That'd be incredible. And I need to go back and watch the match from this morning. I put it on earlier, and unfortunately, I had to leave the house before the match came on. I screwed up the timings of from what time it was in Japan to what time it was here. But like, I'm so happy for him, and his match with Ricochet tomorrow will be unreal. I'm pretty sure the last time that match happened was PWG, was it? Maybe. I don't think it ever happened in Progress, but yeah, it was a good few years ago anyway. So it's just, yeah, it's amazing to see him finally get his flowers because I genuinely believe he is best in the world, to be honest. I know a lot of people throw out names there, you know, guys like Ospreay, guys like Gunther, guys like Kenny Omega, but for me, Zack Sabre takes that championship right there. He is the best in the world, and I think he has been for a long time, to be honest. And he's just, people haven't really noticed, you know what I mean? He's kind of gone under the radar at times, but I genuinely think he's the best wrestler in the world. So I'm really proud to be able to say that it's a British wrestler who takes that spot.
Yeah, absolutely. He is on that spot and he's shining bright because he is absolutely a star right now in Japan. Obviously, during that weekend of All In, there were a lot of things going on and people going elsewhere for shows. But obviously, I know what New Wave Cardiff. Didn't Mercedes Moné rack up somewhere? Did she just pop up?
Yeah, she came to hang out. She came down. Well, I said to hang out. She came down to train. It was awesome. And you know what? She is a workhorse. Obviously, I met Mercedes in my time in WWE, and we always got along and stuff like that. And I noticed that she was in Cardiff because she posted a Weatherspoons breakfast in the morning, and everyone was like, "That's Spoons. She's in Cardiff." So I checked her a message and just, you know, asked if she wanted to come and train that night, and she bit my hand off. Essentially, she messaged me because I messaged a few people to see if I could get in touch with her. And before I knew it, she'd messaged me and said, "Hey, it's training on tonight. I'd love to come and train with you guys." And it was awesome. She got to, you know, talk to all my trainees and give them a load of advice from, you know, her insane experience, you know, former WrestleMania main eventer. It's pretty rare to have someone of her caliber in a Welsh wrestling school, you know. So it was really an absolute pleasure to have her in the school. Amazing for my trainees. I've got footage of her and 17-year-old Leon Cage just chain wrestling around for a while, and it's, you know, imagine having that experience when you're 17 years old. But it was real cool to have her down, and I hope that her and any other, you know, wrestlers will come down and train with us in New Wave Cardiff because it's a really good atmosphere, and I felt like she enjoyed it. She said some real nice things about me on the press conference after All In as well, which was really sweet of her and meant the world to me. So very grateful that she came down. And again, she's just a complete student of the game. She loves it, and all the respect to her for constantly trying to better herself at the level she's at now. Because a lot of people, they just cash out at that stage. You know, a lot of people would be as famous as she is, and they go, yeah, I'm good enough. I don't need to train. She's constantly looking to better herself. She's constantly looking to get better and train. And whether it's with me or Amazing Red or somewhere out in Japan or in Mexico, she's always finding schools and trying to better herself. So good on her. That's the type of person I think younger wrestlers can look up to and admire, because, as I said, you know, she doesn't just cash out and accept that she's as good as she'll ever be. She keeps wanting to be better.
Yeah, no, absolutely as well. I know she's obviously feeding Mina Shirakawa for the Red Pro title and the New Japan Strong Women's title tomorrow as well. But I love their matches with Chris Statlander. I feel like they're good matches for people to study because they're just absolutely phenomenal the way they work together. But obviously as well, you know, Mark, a lot of people you've interacted with in the past are getting a lot of showcase moments. And obviously two individuals as well is the Motor City Machine Guns, Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley. They've signed WWE.
Yeah.
You've obviously wrestled them in the past, and a lot of people say that they're, you know, the best unsigned tag team to never make it to WWE, and now they've made it to WWE and, you know, became WWE Tag Team Champions. For yourself, Mark, obviously as a tag team wrestler, to see the Motor City get their moment, you know, with the WWE, is that like the best fairy book story ending for them? Kind of like maybe getting that moment?
Yeah, 100%, man. It really is, because those guys, like, you know, I always say as a joke to some of my friends, I'm like, if you could copyright or trademark wrestling moves, there'd be some millionaires in this industry. Like, yeah, your Amazing Reds, your Alex Shelley's, your Chris Sabins, you know, your Josh Ligers, I'm sure he already is, but you'd be even richer. You know what I mean? It's like there'd be a load of these guys who they inspired generations of wrestlers. They borderline reinvented it, you know. And when you look at Motor City Machine Guns, like, they definitely inspired all junior heavyweight tag team wrestlers, you know, anyone my age or younger or a bit older. Like, they just inspired the entire generation. But I was even speaking to a Big Damo a few weeks ago, and he was talking about how much inspiration he took from those guys. And I think, well, he's not a junior heavyweight wrestler at all, but he's a tag team wrestler. And you think they've just inspired everyone up and down the card, you know, whatever wrestler you are, you probably got something from the Machine Guns. They are such an important tag team in the history of wrestling, and it's so refreshing. Like, not just, you know, it's amazing to see, and I'm so happy for them that they're finally getting their flowers in a big way. But it's refreshing more than anything to know that these guys who've you know, been doing this for so long at such a high level, and I feel like back in the day, maybe even 5-10 years ago, you know, you get to an age where they go, oh, well, you're too old now. You've got to miss the boat. Whereas now, to see this, it's like, oh, actually, no, like, the game's changed. Like, if you're an important person in wrestling, and maybe it's, you know, Triple H being in charge, maybe it's, you know, everything that's happened there and the tables turning in WWE, but it's so nice to see, you know, these people get credit who have deserved it for so long. And now, because they've had it here, you know, this far into their career, it feels like, oh, I wouldn't have wanted it to happen any other way. You know, they had this incredible story throughout their careers, doing your TNAs and your Japans and Mexicos and Indies and all that stuff. And now they're seeing this amazing success in WWE. I mean, what was it? Was it their third match they won the tag belts? Incredible.
Yeah.
Or second or third or whatever it was. I'm just delighted to see it, because that's, in my opinion, that's how wrestling should be. You know, genuine stories that you haven't got to recreate. You haven't got to get in the writer's room and recreate with vignettes and stuff like that. Genuine history. Like, the reason why Kevin Steen and Sami Zayn in WWE is always so real and feels so important is because it is real. Those guys have known each other for years. They have such a genuine story leading up to them, you know, headlining WrestleMania or wrestling each other in whatever important match or whatever it is, you know. And it's the same with the Machine Guns. You can't, you know, when it's real, essentially. So it's really, really nice to see a big company like WWE finally kind of like realize that and do something with it, that there's so much genuine history within the wrestling industry, which hasn't necessarily been capitalized on. And I think it's just amazing. I love to see it. And it gives me hope as well for teams like, you know, me and Flash, who kind of had our time in WWE, seeing the Machine Guns go there and succeed. It's like, well, you know, it doesn't matter how long you go on for. There's always kind of that potential of something big happening at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, time doesn't defy you. You know, you could become a star in any era of time. You look at somebody like PCO, somebody like in their late 50s who, you know, eventually peaked with the Ring of Honor World Championship run, now doing stuff in TNA. young stars. Obviously, we've got Leon Cage and Patty up here, who are 16, 17-year-olds are doing absolutely stellar stuff and have big, bright futures ahead of them. It's always good to respect what came before and obviously what will come forward. Obviously, Mark, when you were last on, we talked a lot about NXT UK. And since then, I've had a lot of people who've been in NXT UK, obviously Flash, Danny, Sid Scala, just to talk about that era of WWE as well. And obviously before the network shut down 4 days ago, I was watching through NXT UK and just reliving those memories. Even bought that NXT UK Tag Team Championship behind me to put on the studio.
I've got one myself over there. Yeah.
I mean, I remember I brought something up to you when you were obviously up at Power Pro that when I was researching and trying to get that belt, I typed in NXT UK and that belt obviously came up and the women's, but 2 of your shirts also came up, which was funny enough.
Yeah, you told me. Yeah, that's wild. They're still selling those. I mean, they must not be selling many because I don't think my royalties have gone up anytime soon. If anything, they're going down. So I wonder how many they got left. Hey, I'll have them off them.
Hey, they're a tenner each. They were on a sale. So
a tenner each. Oh man, I might buy them now. I'll buy them now and resell them.
Man, collector item there. It's going to make the whole market go ka-ching. I mean,
exactly.
I'll try and beat you to it, mate, and I'll try and pack a few in, and I can get in this. Winter clothing's pretty good for me. But obviously with NXT UK, one of the main things obviously is with WWE moving to Netflix, the network is shut down here in the UK and Europe. And a lot of obviously old past content is no longer available. Obviously, it's still available in the States on Peacock, but obviously for us, we can't view NXT UK. It's essentially for UK fans, no longer viewable. Might obviously come up on Netflix in the future, but I want to know for yourself, Mark, knowing that your past work obviously with NXT UK and obviously 205 Live is no longer accessible for UK audiences. I would love to know your feelings on that. And obviously it can come back in the future, but at this moment, just want to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, do you know what? It's a bit worrying actually, because I know the weeks leading up to it, I had a message off of one or two other former roster members being like, "Hey, what's the deal here? Do you have any idea of whether we can get this footage, something like that?" And I was like, "No, I have no idea unless you sit there and screen record every match that you want. I don't really know what's best to do." I didn't do that. I got one or two that, from old music videos I made and stuff like that. But it was only the night before, it was on New Year's Eve, that Flash messaged in one of our group chats and was just like, "Yeah, I think we're about to lose all the footage." And it is a real shame because a lot of that footage is, really important. And when you look at the current main roster and you think, you've got Gunther, Pete, Tyler, Devlin, Isla, Kaylee Ray. I'm confusing their new names and their old names. Alba, Isla, Viper. Who else? A-Kid, Ben Carter. There's so many guys. A load on main roster, but then a load also just for NXT. And you think, well, a real important part of their career happened in NXT UK. So I do hope that footage shows up somewhere. I know that they've got that WWE Vault YouTube channel. It'd be amazing if they just put the entire back catalog up there, because I know that a lot of people, especially over here in the UK, who are diehard British wrestling fans, I know a lot of people weren't fans of NXT UK because they claim that it killed the indies and all this stuff and all that. But I actually think in time, people will go and look at that footage and some of those matches, and even the post-COVID time when there was no fans, they'll look at those matches and they'll be like, "Holy shit, this is some of the best professional wrestling ever." Because I swear to God, some of those matches are unreal. And I think a lot of people are biased watching it because they think, "Oh, I can't like it because it's WWE," but the talent's still the same. If anything, it's the talent at their absolute best. That Walter Ilya match, some of the ones with A-Kid and Devlin and Pete, and just, Noam, so many of the matches from, Valkyrie's entire start in WWE at NXT UK. It's incredible. And it'd be a shame if that stuff was lost for, fans couldn't find it anywhere, because for a lot of us as well, for myself and a load of the guys who aren't currently there, it's the peak of our careers. It's the biggest and best things that we've done in our careers. So it would be a shame if we didn't have any access to it at all. I really hope it does pop up somewhere on YouTube, even if a fan uploads it. Hey, if there's any fans out there who has all the entire back catalog for some reason, anyone who uploads to watch wrestling, whack it on YouTube and pray to God that it doesn't get taken down by WWE, because it'd be nice just to be able to watch it, at ease, instead of trying to search through Google for any clips of it.
Oh, come on, Mark. I think what we have to do. We have to buy all your shirts that are still in WWE shop, use the royalties, build a pirate ship, and sail the 7 seas of piracy.
That's what it is. Yeah.
I think, as well as a fan, obviously when I got into wrestling, NXT UK was still ongoing. I never really appreciated, because I didn't look at the wrestling outside my window. To know that existed then is one of the kickers of me like not appreciating it when it was here. And even with the UK wrestling now, there's so many people in NXT UK who are now thriving in it, like Nina Samuels, Tate Mayfair's. So many people that had one-off appearances in NXT UK are thriving now in the business itself. And it's a shame. Even I, just trying to find everything I can and researching, it's phenomenal. And obviously I mentioned having sit on before, and it's the behind the scenes people as well, the people that worked in the production, building everything behind it and just developing NXT UK. It's a shame that we can't view it in the home country that it was formed in. It's just a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame. Yeah, even if it was just available over here, really, that'd be fine. Not to, sorry to all the anyone outside of the UK, but it would just be nice if where it was based, we were able to view it. So I do have hope, that it might not end up on Netflix, but if it ends up on their YouTube channel or somewhere like that, that'd be ideal. I'd love to see it again. Anyway.
No, absolutely. Something I want to propose to you, Marcus. I had this to Sid, and I'll reveal his choices to you, but I want to know your thing. Obviously, NXT UK shut down in 2022, but if that had continued, who would you have liked to see become NXT UK Women's and the Tag Team Champions from that roster at that time?
So, I mean, I'm gonna say me first of all for all of them, even the women's, because I love that women's belt. It was awesome. It was smaller and it was way cooler. No, I think for the women's championship, I mean Valkyrie never actually held it, which I think was a crying shame. I think it ended on Mika Satomura. Again, a great champion. Don't get me wrong, but I would have loved to have seen Valkyrie kind of tell her story within the UK brand and her to get the championship. I also think Dani Luna. I know I'm biased because she's my tag team partner and my friend, but like she had just. Well, she got injured, unfortunately, in the last few months of NXT UK, but she was really starting to find her feet there just before she got injured. And I think she would have come back. And as we've seen what she's done in the last few years on the Indies and in TNA, she's absolutely smashing it. So I would have loved to have seen, if NXT UK was still existing now, she would have had enough time to really find her feet and really progress. I would have loved to seen her have it as well. The tag team, I mean, me and Flash were really hoping we were going to be the first 2-time champions. We were really hoping, we're pretty deadly had them, that would have been us. I'm trying to think what other teams we had around that time. I mean, the Hunt were a team which, again, it felt stupid that they didn't have it at one point. They were on fire when they had Eddie Dennis managing them. That would have been amazing. And in terms of the main championship, I mean, Ilya had it for a second, didn't he? And then it went over to Tyler Bate to finish it on. It would have been nice to see Ilya have it again in a longer run. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say A-Kid as well, I think. Because A-Kid is he always just felt like the kind of the up-and-comer on the roster, but his matches were worldly. And I think, I know he had I'm pretty sure he was the first Heritage Cup winner, right? And I know that's more his like style, but to be honest, like British wrestling, he is personifies that really. He is so good at technical wrestling, which at his core kind of developed here in the UK, and I think it would have been great to have had him as NXT UK champion. That would have been a really, really nice moment if he kind of climbed the ranks and defeated Gunther or Ilya or Tyler or whoever it was.
Yeah, that would have been stunning indeed. And Sid's pick were Trent Seven for the men's.
That's a great one. Nice.
Subculture for the tags, that's where, and Nina Samuels for the women's. I think that was.
You know what? Yeah, Nina too. Actually, that's so true. Nina was arguably the most underutilized talent on the roster, in my opinion. And there were a lot of people who I felt that way about because there was so much talent there. But Nina, I mean, when you put her again, look at what she's achieved in the last few years on the Indies. As soon as she's kind of outside of the company, didn't she win like 20 belts or something like that? Like every company around the country and around Europe were pushing her. I just think she is such a polished, television act, and it's crazy to me that she didn't get the call up to like main roster, to be honest, because she would have been perfect as, even as a manager role, like don't get me wrong, like she should be in ring because her in-ring ability is amazing, but just, she could have done it all. I feel like she could have been a general manager. She could have been an in-ring performer. She could have been a manager. She could have been a commentator. She was just a really polished act, tons of feathers in her hat. And I just think, she was, they could have done more of her.
Yeah, no, she's a dream interview for me on this whole session. I think she's one of the best wrestlers in the UK going, men or women, just how much she's done and how versatile she is. Obviously as well, Mark, one company we kind of hinted on earlier, started by the GYV, obviously, is Burning Heart Pro Wrestling as well, obviously, where you're tag champions with Eddie Dennis, FSU. For our international fans that might not be familiar with Burning Heart, what is the story of the promotion? And I know it's on Freeview TV as well, with Extreme Wrestling, as well as alongside Attack as well, if I'm correct.
Yes, Attack is actually airing in a few hours. Well, I mean, this will come out afterwards, I'm sure, but it's literally airing in like 2 hours' time on the Extreme channel, and then I think there's another one next week, I believe. I should probably know as the promoter of Attack, but it's really cool. Like, Extreme is taking on a load of wrestling companies. Yeah, you got North, you got Attack, you got Burning Heart, and I'm pretty sure they show New Japan as well. So it's cool. I hope it kind of becomes the hub for, you know, British wrestling and wrestling in general here in the UK.
Wow, that is going to be something as well. And obviously, Burning Heart looks like an phenomenal promotion. Obviously, there's going to be hopefully more going on with it, and obviously, Extreme Channel is where people can watch it. But obviously, excuse me, coming back to Attack, a promotion that I know a lot of Welsh wrestling fans love, and a lot of people work there. How has 2024 looked for Attack, and what's obviously with the future with the promotion?
2024 has been brilliant. Really happy with the stories we've been able to tell, from a creative side of things. The fact that Eddie Dennis versus Nino Bryan was the first match of the year. It was the very first match, and it was also the last match of the year. I mean, right there, I just feel like that's so cool to see a story kind of start at the start and end at the end. To be honest, Nino Bryan and the story that he's been able to tell over the last year, that's everything that Attack is about. It's about helping young, up-and-coming, talented wrestlers advance their career. He's going from opening the show to closing it as the champion in some worldly matches. Like, he is such a talented guy, and I'm really glad that he can be kind of flying the flag at the moment for Attack and be at the forefront of the show. On top of that, though, I mean, James Ellis, Leon Cage, Tommy Vril, Kanji, like, I can just name so many of anyone I book essentially is someone who I believe is the future of British wrestling. We've had so many nice moments. Kanji has been an absolute star this year at Attack Pro too. We had a moment earlier in the year where she wrestled James Ellis, and when she won the 24/7 belt, she was about to win, and she got 8-year-old Hudson, who is a diehard Attack fan. His uncle is my good friend Sean Smith. They come to all the shows, and they got him in the ring to pin James Ellis for the 24/7 championship. And it made his, it made his night, but I think it made his life. I was watching back the footage almost in tears afterwards, and I was getting a message from, Sean was sending me a message from his mum talking about how grateful they were for it. And to me, it's like, don't get me wrong, we try and achieve, we try and get the 5-star matches. We try and get the work rate matches with these incredible wrestlers. But more importantly than all that, putting a championship on an 8-year-old kid and making his dream come true, that's just, there's so much more important. It's just, you can't argue with how special that is. That is a core memory made right there. And I think, it's always good to remember that as a wrestler, and even as a wrestling fan, just remember, like, what's important in the grand scheme of these things. Is everyone happy at the end of this show? Or are we here to kind of take notes and review the matches and stuff? And obviously there's a place for that in wrestling, and again, I try and tick those boxes at Attack Pro too, but ultimately I want Attack to be the feel-good wrestling company. I want it to be the weird and wonderful world of Attack. I want it to have the best up-and-comers, the ones who aren't getting opportunities elsewhere, the ones that need that boost. But I just want it to be the friendliest atmosphere backstage as well. And I've had a lot of wrestlers tell me that they really, really do. They love the atmosphere that we have at Attack Pro, and I want to continue that, really. So, I'm really proud to just of everything we've done, but behind the scenes and, in front of the fans this year. It's felt really, really polished, and I'm really looking forward to 2025. I feel like we're getting better and better, and hopefully that will reflect in the shows, and hopefully they'll get bigger and bigger as we go.
Oh, I'm sure they will, my friend. And, hopefully there's a show during All-In Weekend, or not, sorry, Forbidden Door weekend. And I'll make sure, drunk or not, I'll make sure I'll get my butt there and view an Attack show in person.
Amazing. I'll start working on it, and hopefully I'll see you there.
Oh, never start the work too late, my friend. Obviously, as well, another promotion, obviously, you have history with, where you and Flash kind of really returned to, was obviously Progress this last year. I know you had the tag team match against Tate and Eddie Dennis. Then you went for the tag titles with Smoking Aces. Not a winning effort, but something in your career, obviously. You've had such history with Progress, and now to come back, what would it mean for you to obviously be cemented in this new, real era of Progress alongside Flash, or even as a single star?
Yeah, I would really love to do more with Progress, and I hope and kind of plan to do more there over the next year because again, it's a completely different company to what it was. It's a completely different company brand wise, but also just behind the scenes as well. And although I did some stuff, when was it? Must have been the end of 2022 with Eddie Dennis as FSU. I feels now like going in with Flash as Subculture. It feels right in a way, because as much as I absolutely love tagging with Eddie, like 100%, it almost feels like that's a special occasion. You know what I mean? That's something that we can bring back now and then, a Burning Heart or a Progress, especially in the Electric Ballroom where that is the home of FSU. But tagging with Flash, we're the team that have gone away, done TNA, teamed in WWE, gone around and done the indies around the world, and it feels nice that we can be in a new setting in a way. We've both got such a rich history there from day one of Progress, but we've never really tagged there together as Subculture. So it definitely feels nice to kind of start something fresh at Progress, and I really hope, to be honest, we had our eyes on the tag team championships, and I really hope that one day we do get to kind of tick that box because I'm a former tag team champion with Eddie Dennis, but me and Flash has never held any gold in the company, which seems crazy considering how much he did for them back in the day, like how many shows he did. So it'd be really nice for us. It would kind of, be nice to cement ourselves in Progress Wrestling, the new Progress Wrestling, and get some gold there. So watch this space, fingers crossed. We haven't got any dates with them currently, but I reckon sometime soon we'll be rocking up there again and come back a bit stronger and make sure we actually win the tag team championships this time.
All fingers are crossed, Mark. Let's get that happening. Let's make sure that happens. And obviously, Mark, it's been great to have you back. But obviously, a few final questions before we wrap up. You had a great year of wrestling, but I know you also had a great year with Junior, your band, because you performed last year as well.
Yes, we did. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you say last year. I only just clocked. I was like, yes, 2025, of course. Yes, we did. We did one show, which was it was our first headline show in over 2 years, I believe. But it was our first show in like over a year. Um, we had a new single out called Destiny. We got a second single coming out soon, actually, and then it'll be followed by an album at some point. I guess the thing with the band is that as we've gotten older, it's always been like a labor of love. It's always been a bit of a passion project. And the older we're getting, the harder it is to find that time. With me, with my personal life, having a daughter now, and but on top of that, just even being busy with the multiple companies that I run. But on top of that, you've got our guitarist and singer Matt, who has recently been like helping write and produce songs for Jin from BTS and traveling all around the world with his writing. Yeah, so he's like a super successful songwriter himself. And then Sai, he also plays drums for a band called Novo Amor, and they do like arena shows all around the world. So collectively, we've all got like our own things going on, which are pretty important. But it's always great when we get to kind of get back in the studio together or get back in, into a band practice space and do a show. So it was really, really nice actually in November doing that one-off show. We played some new songs that we'd never played before, but also we played some old songs that we've just never played in our entire kind of career as bands. So it was really, really nice. And I definitely think we'll be doing at least one more show in 2025, maybe more than one, maybe 2 or 3, who knows?
Oh, come on. People are going to try and get Oasis tickets and then get Junior tickets instead.
Yeah,
That's the way.
please do. They're a lot cheaper. Yeah.
I mean, hey, I think most entertaining of all would be kind of, I want you in AEW just so I can see Fozzy versus Junior, like as live entrances. Which one, like,
Oh, that'd be great. I'd love that. Do you know what I'd love to do? I'd love to somehow do the Jericho Cruise. Get Junior on the Jericho Cruise. That would be awesome.
oh, Jericho, mate. If I can tag you in this, I'll make sure that can happen. That would be an absolute blast. Obviously, Mark, two final questions before we wrap here, my friend. Obviously, Forbidden Door, AEW New Japan coming back. We've mentioned it before. I would hope the Forbidden Doors maybe a bit more to the British wrestling side, maybe some Red Pro or Progress, or even obviously the Welsh side. You mentioned wanting to see obviously Welsh wrestlers on the Cardiff show that happened with Dynamite and Collision. If you could recommend some names, obviously, to maybe appear on a Forbidden Door matchup type, who would you like to see on the card from the Welsh scene, and who would you like their opponents, either from New Japan or AEW?
So, first and foremost, I'm gonna say the young man Leon Cage, mainly because that crazy move that he busts out, that double stomp, the stomp bomb, it
Oh,
went viral it went viral in general, but hopefully I helped by tweeting it out and getting a few eyes on it. But the Young Bucks took some pretty strong inspiration from him. Um, when they hit it on, I think it's on Will Ospreay, like a week or so after it went viral. So I feel like, go on, lads, get him the gig, get him in there. Leon versus Ricochet. I mean, Leon against any of those guys, really. Any of those junior heavyweights. Leon versus Kyle Fletcher. Well, he's hardly a junior heavyweight these days, but you know what I mean? Any of those guys who do that style, get Leon Cage in there. Or, put him against another young man in Nick Wayne. Nick Wayne versus Leon Cage would be the one I'd love to see. But another guy I'd want to see is Danny Jones. I feel like Danny Jones, he did a little bit for NXT UK. He's been smashing it on the indies across Wales, across the UK and Europe. He's worked everywhere. He's done tours of Japan. He's done your MLWs and WWE. He did Ring of Honor back in the days, the WXW, Progress, Rev Pro, you name it. And he just has not had his flowers yet. And this is a guy who you could be putting in there with a Nigel McGuinness or, a Daniel Garcia or a Gabe Kidd or, a Kenny Omega. But any of those technical big guys, this guy could, beat the shit out of anyone he's in the ring with, and he could definitely take it as well. So I really think he deserves some of those opportunities sometime soon. The man is like 6'6". He's built like hell. I'm dying to see him in the ring with some of those top names sometime soon. Hopefully 2025 is the year for him.
Right, absolutely. I mean, that would be absolutely stunning to see these dedicated, hard Welsh workers get that opportunity.
100%.
Well deserve it, my friend. Obviously, Mark, final question before we wrap up, let you have some rest and get into the real 2025 year as it steamrolls ahead. Riot Cabaret have obviously announced a show during that weekend, and obviously it's going to be a great spectacle. Obviously, I do need to obviously ask if obviously you are, and I'm sure you will because you are Mark freaking Andrews, still the Riot Cabaret World Champion by the time that show comes. Is there a particular opponent in mind for you defending your championship during that busy, exciting weekend?
We're going to have to see. We're going to see how it turns out. But one person who I've got a bit of a bone to pick with, that's the Mr. Blobby himself. So, I mean, he took advantage of me the other day, an injured man, and he took advantage of me in the ring. So, do you know what? Put me one-on-one with Mr. Blobby. It won't last very long. I'll kick his ass in no time. But that's the match I want.
Oh, he really is the criminal mastermind of the British minds. That Mr.
He is.
Oh, good Lord, man. Well, hey, Mark, it's been a pleasure to have you back here on the Soul Sessions. And of course, folks, if you've loved what you heard from Mark, I will not only include his Instagram down below, but obviously for Attack Wrestling as well. Click follow Mark's journey, but click to follow Attack. Get your tickets, obviously, for shows that'll be happening across the Welsh scene. I'm sure, obviously, dates will be announced periodically, or are they all announced for Attack shows, Mark?
Some Cardiff shows have been announced currently, but we'll definitely be adding more to those, hopefully including some other cities as well.
Right. There, you've heard it there, folks. Get yourself to Attack and see an absolute brilliant show. Well, as I always say, finish up your pints, put your chairs away, and thank you for tuning us into the start of another year of the Soul Sessions. Thank you very much, everybody.
Cheers. Thanks for having me, man.
Now I'm out there here and gonna live like animals do. No more love and no more